It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Be sure to go follow us on all of our socials at Around the 412 and go check out some of the links that we have in the description of each of these shows. We've got a Rockin' Around the 412 Year 6 promotion going on right now. You can click the GoFundMe, read about the mission. In the last 5 years, with the help of all of you, we've been able to raise over $25,000 to be able to help kids in our local 724 and 412 area code, as well as last year being able to partner up with the East Rochester Salvation Army to help with their Angel Tree and adopt kids and be able to get them the things that they wanted for Christmas as well. So go check out the description as well, that in the description, as well as everything custom designs with our friend Haley Wagner. She can make anything on a t-shirt, and according to the last episode that we just recorded, she has done aprons and not hats yet, but there's hopefully coming soon. But yeah, so go check those out. And if you have noticed, this is the Penguins episode that we're doing this week. We have started something new that we are going to record each of the teams their own episode and put them out in consecutive days. So if you haven't, go check out the Steelers one that has come out before this one, and then tomorrow will be the Pirates. So we don't know if that's going to be the order forever, but that's what we're sticking with right now, with going into Steelers season and then hockey season coming up. So right now you were listening to the Penguins one. So let's get into it.
I don't know, when you said you were listening to, like, first off, just playing Josh's voice for our intro, I almost started to hear you were listening to the Pittsburgh Penguins radio network.
Oh,
as you were starting to say there. Yes, but I'm very excited about the way that we're going to start putting the show out. I think it'll be easier for people to consume, whether you're watching or listening to it. Easier listen or watch. So,
I mean, we just had a Steelers episode that was 40 minutes long. Imagine if we did Pirates and Penguins on top of that.
Yeah.
So if you're in here for just one of the shows, and for all of you that listen to the entire show, we appreciate all of you that were able to get through that.
Because thanks, Tyler Hernley. We know you're the only one. So
yeah, but now it's much cleaner listen. You can listen to whatever team you want to listen, and if you don't want to listen, well, forget you. So anyway, let's get into this show.
CeeLo Green says yes. I want to ask you. I think that we've kind of touched on him last week, maybe because his name might have been floated out there. Tomas Tatar. Seems very heavily linked to the Penguins. I'm not saying it's like on the same level of Erik Karlsson, but it seems like the Penguins definitely in the mix. Very interested in bringing him in to fill a role within their middle six. And obviously without Jake Guentzel to start the season, makes a ton of sense, coming off 20 goals last year for the Devils. Fits the profile as well, being an over 30-year-old player. So that's nice. But I think when you look at what this team needs right now, he's exactly what we're looking for. A middle six player that can provide some scoring punch while Jake is out, can move up in the lineup. But also, man, if you're talking about him playing in a third line role after Jake does come back, and assuming Jake is healthy and going to be the same player he was before that injury, and then you got Tatar in the third line providing, somewhere between 15 to 20 goals, that's exactly what we're looking for. Like, age be damned, I think that he would be a really good addition to this team.
Yeah, let's forget the cap right now. The whole salary cap, that whole situation that we would have to deal with, or actually Kyle Dubas would have to deal with. We wouldn't have to deal with anything. Let's just forget all of that for a second, and let's just look at the players individually as we sit right now. We harped on the bottom six not being able to score enough as it sits right now. At least that's what we project, is that they're not going to be able to score. And that's why we were so ecstatic and we're pounding the table for them getting Erik Karlsson. They did that. So I think that this is a perfect move, because before recording this episode, I just went to look up some of the point totals last season from the guys that we brought in. I'm not going to look at Drew O'Connor and Alex Nylander. Penguin fans, we know what they did. But some of the guys that we brought in, and granted, we know and have talked about extensively that this is going to be a much improved defensive unit. And we've touched on the scoring is not going to be there. So in 2023, 2022, 2023, this is what some of these players did. So Lars Eller in 84 games scored 10 goals, 23 points. Noel Acciari, 77 games, 14 goals, 23 points. Wow, the same. 81 games for Matt Nieto, and he scored 12 goals, 24 points. Rem Pitlick, newly acquired in the Erik Karlsson trade. He played in 46 games in Montreal last year and scored 6 goals and 15 points. And now Tomas Tatar, however, scored in 82 games, 20 goals and 48 points. There's a bit of a difference. He scored over double what the next highest would in our bottom 6. I think that it is a need for the Penguins still to improve their scoring. I think that is something that, listen, Erik Karlsson puts you over the hump a little bit. It alleviated some of that burden from the bottom 6 to be able to score more, but that still doesn't mean that they shouldn't. I still think that they need to chip in their fair share if this team wants to get to where they are. Because if we're saying right now, is this team a Stanley Cup contender? I'm just going to flat out say no. I think that they're improved off last year. They might even be they might be a playoff team. It's weird that I have to say that they might be because they missed the playoffs last year. But are they a Stanley Cup contender the way they sit right now? Absolutely not. They're just not. Look at the teams around the league. They're not built as a Stanley Cup contender right now. So a guy like Tomas Tatar would vastly improve some of that scoring that you would get. And like you said, with Jake being out for who knows how long, he's not going to be able to come back to at least, it looks like, around November at the earliest, and that's when he's being reevaluated. What if that's a negative reevaluation? So whenever that comes, and if he's out for even extended period of time after that, I think Tomas Tatar, like you said, is a perfect guy to be able to move up into that top 6 role. He's already played top 6 minutes in Montreal for a long time, and I think that this is someone who, while he's not as good defensively as some of the guys that we brought in free agency, he's definitely better offensively, and the stats don't lie when it comes to that. And I haven't seen his JFresh hockey card in a while. I'm sorry, I haven't done. I tried to find it, tried to see what percentages he was in. The most recent one I could find was 2021. So I couldn't, and I don't subscribe to JFresh. So sorry, I can't find the updated percentages. But still, I think just looking on the surface numbers, it's easy to tell that this is a guy that would improve the Penguins. And what I'm really worried about when it comes to trying to be able to bring him in is the salary cap. That's what I'll get into now, is what are we looking at cap wise? Because currently as we sit, we are around 79, basically 80,000 over the cap, but that's without Jake being on LTIR, which will alleviate like 5.8 some odd million or 5.9 some million for the cap. But when Jake comes back, they'll still be over the cap. So how much could you sign Tatar to realistically look at? Because I don't think you have to look at like what is the number we can sign him for in the beginning of the season. I think it's the number that you have to look at. Okay, when we project Jake can come back, how are we going to maneuver the cap to be able to be cap compliant? And what number can Tatar fit in to that? Obviously, like you'd love to get him for like $1 million or less, but is that realistic for a player like Tatar? Like, I feel like he could demand much more than that. And by much more, I mean like $2 million or somewhere in that range. So I think if the Penguins could get him in a bargain, which to me, a bargain would be sub $2 million, I would do it. And I would just figure out the cap later. That's Kyle Dubas' problem. Because right now you have to improve your team on the ice. And this is a player that would do so. I think you can figure out the cap layer. You can send players down, whatever, bury it in the NHL. Like Rem Pitlick, his money can go down to the AHL. That's fine. But whenever you're looking at the surface level of the team, just looking at the way the bottom 6 is constructed, whenever Jake is healthy, we have a top 6 that can score and a bottom 6 that doesn't look like it's going to score a whole lot. And he could change that. So I'm very much on board for Tomas Tatar. The biggest issue right now is what number is realistic to be able to even sign him. And it's not just us talking about this too. A lot of Penguin fans have been talking about it, but a lot of the NHL league, I feel like when I search Tomas Tatar's name, there's a bunch of stuff connected to the Penguins. So obviously I feel like there's interest, but what's the money going to look like?
Well, yeah, it's weird. Elliot Friedman, like shortly after we got the Karlsson thing done, Elliot Friedman mentioned he thinks the Penguins are still looking for a player like Tomas Tatar. And it was like Tomas Tatar or Tatar? Like, why are you mentioning him by name like that? Like, it was just weird that he said his name specifically. But yeah, so they've been heavily connected to him. I think Tomas Tatar even like spoke about his interest in the Penguins and the Penguins' interest in him. It does. It seems like it's going to come down to money. What's interesting is like it's even been floated out there like a PTO, and that just seems insane to me. Coming off a 20-goal, 40+ point season, that would be, you know, something that he would go for. yeah, I think at the bare minimum he could get a couple mil.
Yeah.
So, but like with Carlson, I'm gonna do it again. I think he's gonna be a Pittsburgh Penguin when it's all said and done. I think there's enough interest from both sides to make it work. I think the thing that's funny, you mentioned like we were, pounding the table for Carlson because of the lack of offense within the bottom six. It's like, okay, we got Carlson, but also since we've had that conversation, Jake's gonna be out. So like you're losing that offense now. So you got to find a way to supplant. So you can look at it like Carlson replacing some of what you lost with Jake. Tomas Tatar is filling those issues that we talked about with that scoring for the bottom six.
Yeah, and if you don't bring in someone like Tatar, who's filling Jake's spot? Obviously, probably one of the guys on the second line, whether that it be Riley Smith or Brian Russ, will move up to the first lines. But who's taking that next spot up? What is it going to be? A Alex Nylander, or is it going to be some of the guys you brought in free agency? Is it going to be Jeff Carter? I know we mentioned that that could be a possibility, but I still think you're best suited to bring in Tomas Tatar in this situation, because if you make the jump up of whoever is playing in that bottom six, sure, that could help out that position in that second line, but then you're making that bottom six worse, which we definitely don't want to do. So I think that you have to bring him in to be able to make your team more competent, not just offensively, but make the lines more fluid. Have it more evenly suited throughout the entire lineup and make it more even lineup. I don't care if you're going to have several, like a huge discrepancy in your top six to your bottom six scoring, but I still think the bottom six needs to improve some. And so that's why, regardless, whenever Jake come back or not, Tomas Tatar is a perfect example of a guy that can play in both lineups, in the top six and the bottom six. And I think, like you, I think there's too much smoke to it. And just like there was too much smoke to Erik Karlsson, where it's going to get done. It's just a matter of when. That's just how I feel. And maybe that is a little premature to say, that we both think that he's going to be a Penguin, but I don't think that there is this much interest. I don't think that there's this much smoke to it if there's not genuine interest from both sides. And that's what we saw with the Karlsson deal. There was genuine interest from Kyle Dubas and from Erik Karlsson. I feel like that is definitely the case in this scenario as well. So we'll see how long it takes to get it done. But by the time we started talking about Erik Karlsson, it took like a month for that trade to get done. So I'm hoping that this one doesn't take as long, especially because it's a free agency signing. They just have to figure out the money purposes of it. But I don't care how many players you have to send down from the guys that we signed. None of them are Tomas Tatar. And Tomas Tatar is going to improve your teams in ways that some of these guys can't, which is getting the puck in the net. So I'm all for it.
It's funny. It's like we just got Erik Karlsson, and now we're talking about wanting to acquire another player. Like we just sound so spoiled. But as Penguins fans, we are spoiled, and I think that that's a great segue for what I want to talk about here, because I get it. They haven't won a playoff series in a little bit. Last year didn't even make the playoffs. There's been, for how high of a standard we have, they haven't met that as of late. But to look at the Pittsburgh Penguins comparatively to all the teams around the league, like they could have looked at this situation right now and been like, maybe it is time to break this up. Maybe it is time to start rebuilding. And instead they go out and get Erik Karlsson and just say, no, that's not happening. At the very least, they're going to try. Is it going to work? I don't know. But I know that it's not going to be for a lack of trying. So as a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, you got to feel really good that no matter what, while this team has Crosby, Gino, Letang, now Karlsson to add to those guys, they're going to try everything in their power to win it all. And I think you just got to feel really good about it. They've already achieved 3 cups, and to still have that hunger to add to that, I think it just says a lot about what this is as a franchise, and we're very spoiled as fans.
Yeah, I mean, think about what we've seen around the league in our lifetime of some of these franchises that have won cups or been very good for a very long time, but then they get towards the end of that run and the team breaks up. I mean, look at what's happened with Chicago, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves. Where are they going to be? It's just so different than a lot of franchises that you see around the league. So we are spoiled. Not just by the play that we've gotten, but the continued drive from the front office to still want to make this team better and win with the unit that they have. And granted, that is benefit to having 35 and 36-year-olds that are still scoring at the pace that they are and still being able to carry the teams at the way they are. But that's also a credit to the Penguins organization as a whole, and honestly to Fenway Sports Group. They spared no expense in trying to get Kyle Dubas here. They were able to do that, and obviously they want to win. The Penguins organization has made it very clear that they are not breaking up this core and that they want to win. And I think that they're showing that, especially, and they brought in a guy in Kyle Dubas that wants to win, and he wants to win with the core that they still have, and he believes that, just like all of us fans do, that they can still win with this core. And so, yeah, we are spoiled. We've been spoiled for a long time, and this even goes past what you and I have seen as Penguin fans, and this is going back to the days whenever the Penguins organization, despite their financial troubles, they still had Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr. I mean, this fan base has been spoiled for the past 40 years in terms of just looking at the talent that they had on the ice. And then the Penguins were able to figure it out financially. They stayed in Pittsburgh, and ever since then, they've spoiled us with constant playoff runs until this past season. But no, they didn't break it up, and they were able to try to improve the team based off of what they had last year, and they've done so. At least on paper, they've done so. They've improved the team what they had last year. And so as fans, we have to really appreciate the situation that we're in, because not every organization would operate this way. Not every organization would have the aging stars that we have, and they miss the playoffs and then still keep that core together. It could be completely different. And then 2 off seasons ago, not every fan base will be able to keep all their stars together like we did with Malkin and Letang. I mean, it seems like it was close to like Malkin not getting a deal, or at least there was thoughts of that happening. But no, the Penguins organization was able to make it happen. So yeah, we are spoiled in a lot of ways for the skill we had on the ice, for the organization that is going to continue to try to drive this team to a championship run. Not a lot of fans can say that they have that, and not just in hockey, but in all sports. And I think that it's a unique situation that we have in Pittsburgh to be able to have the stars that we've had, keep them together as long as we have, and have a team that wants to win.
And it's two-sided, right? I mean, you got to have the players that want to stay here. Who's to say after, that year when just a couple seasons ago when Letang and Gino hit free agency, they didn't have to come back. And then after, not missing the playoffs last year, one of those guys could have been like, I don't want to be here anymore. But these guys have wanted to be together here as well. So good on the players as well. We're also spoiled from that aspect to have this group of guys, not just as players, but who they are off the ice too. It's just all around, as Pittsburgh Penguins fans, we've been spoiled.
And I mean, you talk about just these more recent ones. In 2009 and then in 2014, Malkin could have left. He could have pulled a Neymar and say, I don't want to play with Messi anymore, and go be the guy somewhere else. But he didn't. He stuck around because he knew, and he said this on the record, that it is best to play. His best hockey is going to be playing with Sid. That's the best decision for him, and it's the best decision for the organization. They've won 3 cups together, so hopefully we can continue that success. Hopefully the continued drive of wanting to win will pay off, and we'll be able to get one more for this aging core.
Yep, and we will leave it at that. As we said, for weeks and weeks and weeks before we actually got Erik Karlsson. Hopefully in the next episode we have Erik Karlsson. Hopefully in the next episode Tomas Tatar is a Pittsburgh Penguin. We can talk about that and what a great addition that would be to this roster, specifically with that bottom or middle 6. But all right, I think that will do it for the Pens show here. Again, if you are also a Steelers and or Pirates fan, you can check out those episodes. Every time that we post one of these, there's going to be like boxes in the bottom that are like suggested videos. Maybe one of those is a recent episode. I don't even know. I just always pick best suggestion for the viewer. So, but either way, check out the other content on the channel. Really excited, like I said, about doing the show this way going forward. Check out the links in the description, whether that's year 6 of rocking around the 412, which Tyler touched on. 5 years of doing this so far, raised over $25,000 thanks to you guys. we're going to get prizes again for you guys coming in here in the near future. I'll start posting what some of those will be, and help us give Christmas that is deserved to these kids, both local families as well as the East Rochester with the kids off that angel tree. So you can check that out, as well as Everything Custom Designs by Haley. I rock some of her shirts on here from time to time, but also she has a Facebook page. She has an Etsy shop. You can check out her stuff there. Really good work. She actually, I think, just won Best in the Valley for best new small business. So
There you go.
Shout out. Yeah. But all right. You can catch us next week for a Penguin show, or you can also check out a Steelers or Pirates show in the meantime. Till then, for Tyler, I'm Smitty. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.